I wanted to say how very good it feels to not have resistance, which makes it all the more frustrating when I do have resistance and I do not allow the energy to flow. And I recognize that it is my doing.
So that goes like this. I want to feel good because that's letting it in, but sometimes I'm not letting it in and I don't feel good, and then I'm really, really mad at myself for not letting it in, so I really don't let it in, and then I'm really, really mad at myself for not letting it in, so I don't let it in, and then I'm really, 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 so in this case I'm using myself as my excuse to not let it in.
Absolutely.
We understand that, yes.
The gentleman who preceded me was right on the money with my specific issue and question, because it seems my entire life I've had an inability to defend myself, an inability that it's grown to stubborn refusal to defend myself. I just clam shut, and I'm at the point where I don't feel a need, but the people around me say, oh yes, you need to do this.
Why are they telling you that you need to defend yourself? Are they witnessing things, or are you telling them about the injustices?
Witnessing.
So people are watching you being mistreated, and they're saying you should stand up for yourself and not be mistreated?
They're perceiving more of a mistreatment than I feel. So it's very subjective.
So how do you explain them being in the middle of your experience? If you're not feeling it, and they are, how'd they get in the middle of it? Is it because you're noticing that they're noticing?
More so, yes, I think.
So here I am having my experience, and here you are having your experience, and you're watching me having my experience, and you've got opinions about my experience because you're seeing my experience through your eyes. And so my experience, as far as you are concerned, is more about what you're living than it is about what I am living. It's sort of like these eyewitness accounts. Have you ever seen 10 people giving accounts of the same thing, and they're giving 10 different accounts even though it was the same thing that they're all looking at? And it's because they're all looking at it through their experience. So what you're wanting to say back to them is, well, you're just seeing this through your eyes, and so my problem is not really my problem, it's your problem. And then they'll go and leave you alone. What an attitude of non-resistance or an attitude of allowing is I'm going to allow the fullness of who I am to flow through me, and I'm not going to use you as my excuse not to allow it to flow. But the reason that we began with you as we did is because we see something very often, and there is a bit of it here, not much, but it is really worth mentioning, and that is, as you are making your way through your physical experience, you are growing and changing and getting new ideas all the way along. And sometimes, as you're living an experience that is not pleasing you, you will be verbal about it. It's a very common thing to talk to the people around you about the things that are bothering you. And without realizing it, what you're actually doing is making yourself, through your feeling of vulnerability, you're making yourself appear vulnerable to those who are listening in, those well-meaning friends who want your life to go well, who have learned from your words that life is not going as well as you would like it to go. And then you move through life experience and you learn about non-resistance, you learn about letting it in, you learn about allowing, but they're still remembering the things that you've told to them before, you see. And so it's a constant reorienting of those who are around you. It's sort of like, have you ever had a girlfriend complain to you about her boyfriend, and the things that she tells you make you decide that he is the most horrible person on the planet, and you get yourself all ready to agree with her in that vibration, and then she makes up with him and wants you to go out to dinner with them? And now you're sitting there full of all that vibration about him, and now she's in love with him again, and you're supposed to be too, but you just haven't made the shift back there that quickly. You're remembering all of the stuff she told you, you see. You do that with those people around you. You've been offering your vibration all over the place, and they've learned their relationship with you, and then when you come to a new place of no longer feeling that way, sometimes they're still stuck in that old vibration. So you're wanting to constantly stand in this fresh new place and do your very best to express this fresh new place to them in a way that they can understand who you now are and how you now feel. And a very good words that will help them make that transition with you is, that was then, this is now. I used to feel that way, I don't anymore. And just express that as often as you can until they understand your new, fresher, happier vibration. But we have to say to you, When you shift your vibration, the manager called law of attraction takes care of everything else. So if you've still got them lingering into your experience and meddling in a way that doesn't feel right, we promise you, you are still inviting them vibrationally. You just don't know you are. A good way to find out about that is to say to yourself pretty often, am I letting it in? Am I letting it in? Because it's so easy to answer that. Am I letting what in? Am I letting my source energy in? Am I letting my clarity in? Am I letting my wellness in? Am I letting well-being in? Am I letting it 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 in? Ask yourself that as many times a day as you can think of. Am I letting it in? Am I letting it in? Feel a little criticism about something. Am I letting it in? No, not really. And then just do your best to lift off that thought. You want to talk about the incident that brought you to this question?
I have been very kind and generous to a number of people who have chosen to go away, and instead of them being able to express gratitude to me as I feel they should.
Why were you kind? Were you kind because it is natural, or because your kindness would bring you a reward?
Both. Both.
What we've noticed is that when you offer something because it's who you are, the reward comes in that moment because you used them as your excuse to let it in, and there is no greater reward. When you extend kindness to another, it is your fullest state of connection. So they stood in a place that summoned that through you, and there is no greater reward than that opportunity, you see. When you think about it, the reason you extended it is because you were hooked to it and they weren't. So you were wanting to sort of connect them by means of your kindness. But the thing about that is that the reason that you did it to begin with is because they were in some sort of need. And the reason that they were in need means they weren't hooked to the stream. So you were sort of like the jumper cable, and you were sort of the battery that was giving their battery a boost. And so you extended your kindness, which served to connect them to source energy. But the thing is, they are not maintaining their connection to source energy. So now you're expecting them to return the gratitude or to feel appreciation when they were without the appreciation to begin with. That's why you helped them to begin with, you see. You're asking them to do something that they're not prepared or equipped to do because they're not connected to the stream.
And now they've gone the opposite direction, which instead of being neutral, has gone over to being very, very negative.
But how do you feel about them? In other words, are
angry.
And so it's a match, isn't it? Your vibration is the dominant one in this relationship, and they're just reflecting back to you whatever it is you're offering to them. Now, we're not trying to give you credit for how they're vibrating. We're only giving you credit for the way they're showing up in your experience. Because every person, it's like a whole city of people. You know how in a city there'll be the good guys and the bad guys by your standards. There'll be those that you agree with on lots of things and those that you disagree on lots of things. Every person is like a whole city. Every person has all kinds of vibrational propensities or potentials. And the way they play with you has to do with what part of them you're activating through your attention to it, you see. And so once you conclude that someone's needy and you give them kindness or extend dollars or something to them to assist them from your place of accepting that they are needy, now what's happened is that must be the vibration that they maintain. In other words, that's their relationship with you. An easy way to hear this is pretend that your friend has 10 dominant characteristics and 9 of them are horrible, and 1 of them is delightful. If you could practice in your mind the attention to the one lovely characteristic, that would become the dominant relationship vibration between you. So as you think about them, that's the vibration that is activated within you, which means in any moment in time, if they're vibrating there, the manager called law of attraction would bring you together and you'd have that lovely time together. But if you are instead focusing upon the other 90% of them, then that's the vibration that is dominant within you, and even if they do have an occasional happy time, you won't hook up with it because that's not what the vibrational match that you are making. Now what happens is we're making this all pretty clear-cut, almost simplistic, because what happens is you are a complex offer of vibration, and so are they. And so it's sort of a hodgepodge of vibration, and you're sort of banging on top of each other, and neither feeling responsible for the way it's turning out, while in reality both of you are responsible for the way it turns out. But the reason that we always like to talk to the one that is asking the question is because we want you to discover that your true power comes by making a decision that you're going to let it in. If these people have been ungrateful and you hold that in your consciousness, then you're not letting in what you want from them. You're holding yourself in vibrational discord with what you want from them, you see.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Easier to hear in that way, isn't it?
Yes.
We're appreciating your willingness to expose your humanness here.
That's why I'm here.
Co-creating at its best. Yes, indeed.